Theme 5. Entertainment and Media. Gap Filling. Reading 1. Music is clearly different from language. People can, nevertheless, use it to communicate things, especially their emotion, and when allied with speech in a song, it is one of the most powerful means of communication that humans have. But what, biologically speaking, is it? If music is truly distinct from speech, then it ought to have a distinct processing mechanism in the brain, one that keeps it separate from the interpretation of other sounds, including language. The evidence suggests that such a separate mechanism does indeed exist. Scientific curiosity about the auditory system dates back to the mid-19th century. In 1861, Paul Broca, a French surgeon, observed that speech was impaired due to damage to a particular part of the brain, now known as Broca's area. The location of different language processing tasks in Broca's areas, found in the brain's left temporal lobe above the ear, was one of the first pieces of evidence that different bits of the brain are specialized to do different jobs. Theme 5. Entertainment and Media. Gap Filling. Reading 2. Art and entertainment. Until the early part of this century, there was certainly a distinction between popular music, the songs and dance tunes of the masses, and what we have come to call classical music. Up to that point, however, there were at least some points of contact between the two, and perhaps general recognition of what made a good voice or a good song. With the development of mass entertainment, popular music split away and has gradually developed a stronger life of its own, to the point where it has become so incompatible with the classics. In some respects, it is now dominated by the promotion of youth culture, so that a concert by Elton John is just as much a fashion event, and other artists may be promoting dance styles or social protest. For this reason, it is impossible to talk about popular music as if it were a unified art. The kind of music you like may depend on what kind of person you are. Curiously, there are now classical musicians and operatic singers who have achieved the status of rock stars and have been marketed in the same way. This seems to suggest that many young people enjoy classical music, but do not wish to be associated with the lifestyle of those who are traditionally supposed to enjoy it. Or it may simply be that recording companies have discovered that there is an insatiable desire for sounds, and that classical music is beginning to sound exciting to a generation raised on rock, but now settling into affluent middle age. Theme 5. Entertainment and Media. Reading Comprehension. Reading 1. The modern comic strip started out as ammunition in a newspaper war between giants of the American press in the late 19th century. The first full-color comic strip appeared in January 1894 in the New York World, owned by Joseph Pulitzer. The first regular weekly full-color comic supplement, similar to today's Sunday Funnies, appeared 2 years later in William Randolph Hearst's rival New York paper, The Morning Journal. Both were immensely popular, and publishers realized that supplementing the news with comic relief boosted the sale of papers. The Morning Journal started another feature in 1896, The Yellow Kid, the first continuous comic character in the United States, whose creator, Richard Outcault, had been lured away from the world by the ambitious Hearst. The Yellow Kid was in many ways a pioneer. Its comic dialogue was the strictly urban farce that came to characterize later strips. And it introduced the speech balloon inside the strip, usually placed above the characters' heads. The first strip to incorporate all the elements of later comics was Rudolf Dirk's Katzenjammer Kids, based on Wilhelm Busch's Max and Moritz, a European satire of the 19th century. The kids' strip, first published in 1897, served as the prototype for future American strips. It contained not only speech balloons, but a continuous cast of characters, and was divided into small, regular panels that did away with the larger panoramic scenes of earlier comics. Newspaper syndication played a major role in spreading the popularity of comic strips throughout the country. Though weekly coloured comics came first, daily black and white strips were not far behind. The first appeared in the Chicago American in 1904. It was followed by many imitators, and by 1915, black and white comic strips had become a staple of daily newspapers around the country. Theme 5. Entertainment and Media. Reading Comprehension. Reading 2. The lack of printing regulations and the unenforceability of British copyright law in the American colonies made it possible for colonial printers occasionally to act as publishers. Although they rarely undertook major publishing projects because it was difficult to sell books as cheaply as they could be imported from Europe, printers in Philadelphia did publish work that required only small amounts of capital, paper and type. Broadsides could be published with minimal financial risk. Consisting of only one sheet of paper and requiring small amounts of type, broadsides involved lower investments of capital than longer works. Furthermore, the broadside format lent itself to subjects of high, if temporary, interest, enabling them to meet with ready sale. If the broadside printer miscalculated, however, and produced a sheet that did not sell, it was not likely to be a major loss, and the printer would know this immediately. There would be no agonizing wait with large amounts of capital tied up, books gathering dust on the shelves, and creditors impatient for payment. In addition to broadsides, books and pamphlets consisting mainly of political tracts, catechisms, primers, and chapbooks were relatively inexpensive to print and to buy. Chapbooks were pamphlet-sized books, usually containing popular tales, ballads, poems, short plays and jokes. Small, both in form and number of pages. They were generally bound simply in boards, a form of cardboard, or merely stitched in paper wrappers, a sewn antecedent of modern-day paperbacks. Pamphlets and chapbooks did not require fine paper or a great deal of type to produce. They could thus be printed in large, cost-effective editions and sold cheaply. By far the most appealing publishing investments were to be found in small books that were proven to be steady sellers, providing a reasonably reliable source of income for the publisher. They would not, by nature, be highly topical or political, as such publications would prove of fleeting interest. Almanacs, annual publications that contained information on astronomy and weather patterns, arranged according to the days, weeks, and months of a given year, provided the perfect steady seller, because their information pertained to the locale in which they would be used.